Hello to all my Support Fibromyalgia friends. I am Melissa Talwar. I am the Executive Director of the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I am also a board certified functional medicine health coach. Welcome to another special edition of Support Fibro Live. I'm excited to just be here on the show. So if you're tuning in live, please like and share this video. Share a comment where you're tuning in from. How's your weekend going? What's new and good with you? Or even just post an emoji. I'd love to hear from you. Today's conversation, we're going to dig into like what's on your fibromyalgia bookshelf. So I would love participation galore because I want to know what's on your fibromyalgia bookshelf. What books are you using to help yourself with fibromyalgia? It doesn't necessarily have to have fibromyalgia in the title, but it's a good start there. So I thought I'd share one resource with you and kick off this new video series because I have a lot of books on my bookshelf. Some of them have fibromyalgia in the title, others don't. So I thought I'd get started with some because I do get this question asked a lot. Like, what books do you use for fibromyalgia? What books would you recommend for people who are newly diagnosed with fibromyalgia? So, if you're out there, just share what books are you reading right now to help yourself with fibromyalgia? One of the top books that I always share with people, and especially those that have been newly diagnosed, is the FibroManual. So this book is definitely on my fibromyalgia bookshelf, and it's written by Dr. Ginevra Liptan, who I had first come across with her original book, Figuring Out Fibromyalgia. That book with the Figuring Out Fibromyalgia was published in 2011. So I don't think that's available anymore, but the FibroManual is still available, and it was published in 2016. And the reason I always recommend it because it's a good starting point. So it's good to have on your bookshelf if you've been newly diagnosed with fibromyalgia or you're still trying to troubleshoot the beginning steps of fibromyalgia. Because sometimes we jump over and around, or we're working with a provider and they only maybe focus on one area and you're still not feeling better. So that's why I like the comprehensive FibroManual as a place to begin, read through, because she does a great job of covering a variety of topics that cover the full spectrum of fibromyalgia early on. And it's also, her book is a great integration of standard care, medical care, because she is an MD, with integrative care. So it balances out both worlds as you go through the book. So there are medication recommendations that you can work on with your provider, and there's also supplement recommendations. So it's a good balance of this integrative, complete look at where we are at with fibromyalgia. Now, again, there has been updates in the science of fibromyalgia since this book was published, but I really do give her shout outs for like going through all the stages of fibromyalgia. And even in the index, you can read and just look up this whole complete guide. She has an appendix as well that you can share with your provider that has been referenced that they will understand. So if you're working with an MD, rheumatologist, or any of the primary care physicians, it's a good guide for them to kind of get into. And I know sometimes providers don't have time to read, but you can send them to the appendix section of the book, or even there's a good section on sleep, especially the column page 74. I always tell people go to page 74 because this is where she breaks down sleep, and a lot of providers would appreciate it. So that's like one of the top books that I have on my fibromyalgia bookshelf. And if you have, do you have that? Do you have that, the FibroManual on your fibromyalgia bookshelf? Let me know by chiming into the comments, or just feel free to like share other books that you also recommend for people with fibromyalgia. I have a ton of them, and we can even get into that. We will get into that on other videos because there's other authors who've written books. I will preference again that Dr. Liptan is an MD. She was trained in medical school with standard care situations. So I like her background and how it integrates. And, you know, she has more references on her website where the science and keeping up with the science as well from when she published this book. So it's a really great reference to go off of. And I really appreciate her sharing her story, because I know initially in this first book, what captivated me too was that she shares her story of being diagnosed with fibromyalgia. She lives with fibromyalgia. So I know that some of you already know of her, and she runs the Frida Center for Fibromyalgia. So she treats specifically fibromyalgia patients. She has a ton of experience in fibromyalgia. So I have a lot of respect for what she does for the community. And that's why this book is so important too, from what I've noticed and feedback from all of you, because I travel with a bunch of these books with the FibroManual. I travel with that book everywhere I go with extra copies. And that's the one that I generally give out all the time to support group leaders, people around the country, so that they can read and again get that basic understanding of what's going on with fibromyalgia in all the fundamentals. So what we're going through. And then I think she calls it the 4 R's. So with fibromyalgia for this figuring it out. So the 4 R's of fibromyalgia treatment. And that's how she kind of goes through the structure of it. And there's videos online. So you can watch some videos. I think they're all available on YouTube for you to watch, where she actually breaks it down. If you're not interested in reading from a book, she puts it into a video of breaking down the 4 R's. So talking about hyperactive stress response, what happens to our stress response. So that's part of the rest. So that's the rest section. Then she has fixing fibromyalgia sleep, increasing deep sleep. So that goes back to the page 74, which I memorized for so long, and it gave me my aha moments, because she goes through, okay, so you need to get to sleep. So first of all, you need to fall asleep, which some people struggle with. Then you need to stay asleep, which some of us struggle with, and then getting the deep restorative sleep. So that's like, and she breaks it down in some of the structures of that cheat sheet on that page. She lists medications that providers could consider. And then she also, in addition, adds in supplementation that you can consider for each of those phases. Now, it's tricky with that deep sleep, because it's well known that sometimes you might need some medications to get into that deep restorative sleep, but it's all this like figuring out. So I like that chart is available on page 74, so you can kind of work through that with your provider. But I also like the fact that she also adds supplementation. So if you're working with an MD, you can take a look at that too. Or if you're working with a naturopathic provider or integrative provider, that's something that you can reference, and you can go more onto that side. So that's the sleep is definitely comprehensive of a new approach for what it is going on, because I think sometimes that gets missed, is looking at sleep. You're going to need sleep to recover, and with fibromyalgia you get the unrefreshed sleep. You're not waking up restored. There's a lot of components to that, and so that's a big thing that we cannot miss when it comes to fibromyalgia treatment. And sometimes it is glazed over, and it's important. And there's sometimes, if you're given a medication, there's a medication that might interrupt sleep, or interrupt your circadian rhythm. So she goes into that as well, to look out for, there's certain medications or certain things that you do that might interrupt your deep sleep. So it may not necessarily be taking you off of that medication, but putting it in another place. Like that might have to switch to a morning routine, so you can see that you're not affected later on. So that's why, I just carry this FibroManual with me everywhere. I refer to it quite a bit, and I talk to people about it. And this is the one that I like hand out to people the most. Then she talks about repair. So digestion, therapeutic movement. I love the fact that she uses movement as the word. Unsticking the fascia. So she is a big, big promoter of myofascial release. John Barnes. Shout out to Jamie Liptan, who does the myofascial release up north in Portland. And I know Dr. Liptan just did some more training with John Barnes as well. Amazing aspect of understanding that release for certain people, and she's really benefited from it as well. So that's why I appreciate this whole collection of, like, she's tried these things on herself, right? So this has been her experiment on her own self and her own fibromyalgia, and then she's been able to deliver it to us in a book, which is why I think I find it so comprehensive. And then in the rebalance part, it's energy production. And we've really expanded on this. And this is a topic I love talking about. You can see from the pathway planner, like bioenergetics, mitochondrial function, energy production. Then she gets into inflammation, adrenal hormones, thyroid and sex hormones, mood. So all of this, like, okay, so this is really comprehensive. You can see some of the basics. And of course she wants to expand on this, but you have to get it first at starting point in the book. And that's where she goes from. And then she goes to reduce, which is the other last of the R's. And it's the fatigue, fibro fog. She addresses pain, hypersensitivity. She talks about pain medications here. She talks about cannabis, and then pain from other sources, chronic fatigue syndrome. I do like that she mentions other things, and even LDN. She mentions LDN in here as well early on. So she's been talking about LDN for a while. She's been associated with it. So I love the way that she depicts it and goes through the book. Like I said, it's a good comprehensive, like basic level of everything that you can look at with fibromyalgia, and then you can take it to your provider. So like I said, credible MD background. And it even says on the title, a complete fibromyalgia treatment guide for you and your doctor. So there is the appendix reference in the back that you can show your doctor if they want the quick cliff notes rather than reading the whole book. And I know it's been successful because I've talked to many of you out there. I've handed many of you the book, sent many support groups the book to hand out or just create a library. I love free little libraries and creating that around the country. So I'm always sending it, even if you have lupus or autoimmune conditions with the diagnosis of fibromyalgia. I still hear back from people that this is a helpful book. And again, she has all these charts in the appendix section that you and your provider can work through. Because she goes through the medication supplements to improve sleep. So she has deep sleep promoters, sedatives, SNS blockers, and we learn a lot from this, right? So we know that no treatment for fibromyalgia is going to be the same. We are all different. So I like that this just gives different references. So some people can respond well to medications. Other people need supplements. And that's what makes this book so credible and what makes her resource so credible as a book. But I want to hear from you. If you've read the fibromyalgia and the FibroManual and you love it and you find it's on your fibromyalgia bookshelf, please let us know. Please let us know of other books and resources that you also have. Because, like I said, I have this stack. I've done the books. I have the Mayo Clinic book, FibroFix, From Fatigue to Fantastic. So, all these encompassing books. I just love learning from all kinds of stuff. So, I read everything. I take bits and pieces. I learn from each provider that's put their book out. But she is definitely, I think it really gels with all of us. I think maybe that's a part of it too, that she lives with fibromyalgia every single day. She's very open and upfront that this has been her experience in her life. So she's shared what she's done and the things that didn't work for her as well. And that's even from the first book. She talks about all kinds of things she tried that didn't fare well for her. So I appreciate the honesty. And she's written this book to just try to help as many people. I'm still working on cloning her to this day. I promised her I'd figure out a way to clone her because I know that she has a waiting list a mile long. And I appreciate all the hard work she's put in as being the MD provider for fibromyalgia and seeing and sticking to her guns for treating fibromyalgia as well and living with fibromyalgia. And I know she's been really open about just the different protocols she's used. And that's why this is like super helpful. So it's a good start. And if you've been helped by this resource, again, please let us know. I know I go through sometimes the reviews and just figure out where people need questions answered. And I think too, like some people have questions as well as to go deeper with supplementation. And I think there's other books that kind of that add to that because there's other providers out there that work with fibromyalgia patients and their backgrounds are a little bit different. So they don't have an MD, they're more maybe chiropractic training. So that's why they lean towards more of the supplementation. So you'll get a good comprehensive idea of what to do. And this book does add in more supplementation and stuff like that. And I know she does do a huge discussion on GABA. So you're looking at different GABA transmitters. And we know that this works with neurological diseases. We've seen some more science on supplementation for neurological health. So it's just advancing that care and learning as much as we can. But I know when I hear from people after the book, they realize that they're not alone. And they realize after reading this book as well that someone cares about them. There's a provider out there that cares about them. Although I'm going to say this, we all do care about you. So please don't forget that you are not alone in this. And these are the resources we can share with you that there's more coming and they continue to come. And actually, I looked at online at Amazon to see, and there's some new fibromyalgia books. So I did order them and I actually looked at the different providers that were writing them. So I've kind of reached out to some of those providers as well to see, just to connect with them. I would love to understand their experience. I think there might be a few living with chronic illness and they've gotten into the medical space, which is exciting, right? We need more providers who have some empathy for chronic illness, who have fibromyalgia and have experienced it, are managing it and thriving with it in the medical community. So we'd love to work with you. But if you are out there right now, definitely just say hello and then let me know what is on your fibromyalgia bookshelf, because we just appreciate the conversation. And I'm seeing some comments too on just, so I just want to address like the whole back with like medication supplements. I mean, it's a tricky balance. If you are able to take medications, more power to you, and be able to sleep with those medications without severe side effects. And I see comments asking about functional medicine, sort of. And just to let everyone know, when it comes to functional medicine isn't anti-medication. So there is a part that medication is needed. There's no medical shaming when it comes to that at all. Like I said, more power to you if you can find relief or if you can find deep restorative sleep with a medication. Oh, I am so happy for you because that has been a deep seated struggle in my life. And I've just struggled. I've personally had some instances and huge side effects with medications. So I had to find something else. And that's where we start to ask more questions and ask more questions of a provider. And I think we're moving in the right direction when it comes to standard care, is the understanding that we can't treat every single symptom with a new medication, because then we're getting a lot of people who might be taking a whole bunch of medication. We're getting compounded side effects, but they still feel awful. And that's where I was. I had a ton of medication. I still felt awful. Like my pain was still sky high. I had severe brain fog. I couldn't function. I felt like a zombie with everything that I was taking. I couldn't even remember what I was taking. So that's where the questions come in from a functional medicine standpoint. It doesn't mean that it's anti-medication, but maybe it's the retooling. Like we're not adding enough of other things in an integrative practice way, to adjunct to the medication, or maybe we got to pull back because we're not paying attention to there is side effects. People can be really sensitive. So this is where it's the combination of. So you might be taking something that will help with deep restorative sleep, and then you need to add in some extra sleep hygiene modalities in your own life so you really get the full benefit of what your sleep could feel like for fibromyalgia, because sleep is so important. And I'm seeing different people comment too, like, hi, Judy, it's nice to see you. That medications don't necessarily, yes, they don't work for everyone. And that's why we need a comprehensive healthcare plan, in how we go about it and working with different providers, integrating integrative health. We're moving towards this whole body medicine, personalized medicine, precision medicine, where we can get down to the details of what works for each one of us. And this is why the fibromyalgia is like a starting point. It's the boilerplate that you can go off of if you're struggling and you're kind of like shooting everywhere. This is a good place to just make sure you're covering the basics and that you and your provider are covering the basics, and then you can start to build from there. Okay, so you've moved from the medications don't work, so now you got to just move over to the supplement side. And now you're working through some of the supplements and lifestyle changes that'll help and like just be adjunct to improving quality of life. And that's what we just have to understand. But it's all these books and tools help us learn, and help us collaborate. And this is where we're moving the providers forward. So know as patients that you're empowered, right? You're advocating for yourself and you're moving and making changes. That's why sharing, with each other is super important. Now, Judy, do you have a favorite book at all on your fibromyalgia bookshelf that you want to share? Please leave a comment and share if you have. Like right now, we're talking about the FibroManual, that's on the bookshelf, and it's like one of the first books I tell people to get right away, or I just I hand them the book, when I'm on trips. Many of you have met me, and I'll just like, here, take this book, and look at the references, take this to your doctor, especially when the doctor is saying this is not real, because uh, we gotta change that language. So this is from a MD who lives with fibromyalgia. She runs the Frida Center for Fibromyalgia. here is a book that she wrote, a comprehensive guide for treating fibromyalgia, good basis, a good meld between standard care and integrative health, naturopathic. So she does a good job of putting it all together for us. And again, this was written in 2016. She has updated resources on her website, but I do like that she's talking about different things. She does mention inflammation, checking for those values, sleep, digestion. So gut health is super important. Movement. She uses the word therapeutic movement. She talks about myofascial release, so fascia pain. And then, like I said, she even mentions back then in LDN, she's talking about medical cannabis as well for treating. So there's a lot of good topics in this book. That's why it's my go-to as the first book on the fibromyalgia bookshelf. But if you guys have other books that you want me to go through, my stack is a mile high. And again, I don't always, it's not just fibromyalgia in the title of the book. I have a ton of other books that I would love to share with the fibromyalgia community that don't necessarily, they weren't written just for fibromyalgia. But I wanted to start this video with more of just specifically for fibromyalgia, because this question does come up. It's a frequently asked question. What book do you recommend for people who are recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia or newly diagnosed, or just people kind of struggling? I just want to make sure if you're really struggling that you've gone through the basics and basic understanding with your provider first, and then you move on to added things that you can change. And so that's the point of the basis for this. And thanks, Anthony, for tuning in. So taking a mix, right? So this is where, again, it's like, not 100%, but you're functioning, and we need to keep like figuring out. It's an integrative approach. So Anthony, you're going to be different from Judy. We're different. I'm different from all of you as well, but it's trying to figure out what works best for you. And these are where the tools and sharing all the tools and ideas come in of what we can do to help ourselves and advocate for ourselves. We are working to get the providers caught up because I think they're really confused, right? So, if Judy and Anthony and myself were going to the same provider, we're all diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and the provider's like, well, I tried this on Anthony, and then I'm going to give this to Melissa. And Melissa was like, whoa, like Melissa can't use that. So you can understand how confusing it's like, wow, there'll be, because I'm on the other end of the spectrum when it comes to medications, like severe side effects of medications. Medications almost ruined my life with the sleep aids. I had a roommate in college. I had such bad side effects to some of the sleep medications that she actually asked me to stop being her roommate. So it really, that's where it's like, but see, it's not shaming. It's not anti-med. We're so different. Yes, exactly. I like what Judy says. We're all so different. And every fibromyalgia patient is different from each other. We respond differently. So this is where treatments get really tricky, and we've got to be a little bit more patient with our providers. And that's why we want to empower you here at the Support Fibromyalgia Network with different tools. So that is the first tool on the bookshelf for me, and one that I recommend. So if you don't have the FibroManual, or you want to ask more questions about the FibroManual, please reach out. Happy to share more. And again, if you do have it, remember that chart on page 74. I always refer to it because it gave me like, okay, you got to fall asleep, you got to stay asleep, and then you got to get deep sleep. So that deep restorative sleep seems to be the trickiest part of this when it comes to all of that. And I'm finally seeing some more people chiming in. So this is good. Share with each other tips with different things. And it's interesting because Celeste talks about coffee and caffeine. And isn't it funny that some people, when they can drink coffee close to bedtime and they like fall asleep. And now I don't know if they're getting the deep sleep with that caffeine, but they just conk out. They can drink caffeine like right. I've seen people just drink coffee right before bed and they're like, whoo. So we're all so different, and finding tools that work for each of us is super important, but you got to know the tools. So you got to know what's out there. And that's the important piece for the Support Fibromyalgia Network here. We're just going to be sharing all these tools with you. If you like this video and you want to hear more about what's on my bookshelf and all the books, I can go through everything because I love reading. And if you have a favorite book that you think I should be reading, let me know. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you. Again, I am Melissa Talwar from the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I'm a board certified functional medicine coach. Stay tuned. We appreciate it. Please like and share and subscribe to all our videos. We're going to have some more giving opportunities with our advocates coming up and some more interviews coming up soon. So stay tuned. Have a wonderful rest of the day. I still need to figure out, one, how to clone Dr. Liptan, and then two, how to add another day between Sunday and Monday. So if I figure that out, I will let everyone know. Thank you, everyone. I will talk to you soon. Bye.